Hello, and welcome to the History of Comic Books Podcast, Episode 1, The Golden Age. The Golden Age of comic books is considered to have taken place between 1938 and 1945. While the exact end in 1945 is not quite known, as it mostly ties in with the end of World War II, there is no question when it began, with the debut of Action Comics #1 in June of 1938, featuring the debut of Superman. Created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster from a mix of pulp heroes like John Carter and Doc Savage, along with a nice mix of the origin of Moses, he quickly became one of the most popular characters ever invented, and it wasn't long before the comic book readers started asking, where is the comic book with Superman in it? However, his publisher was slow on the uptake, with him not even returning to the Action Comics till issue number 7, and then finally taking over the series in issue number 11. Pretty soon he had his own comic in the summer of 1939 with Superman #1, which mostly reprinted his first appearance in Action Comics from number 1 through 4. With Superman starting the superhero craze, it wasn't long before everyone starting demanding their own, and even more, including his own publisher. As a result, Bob Kane and Bill Finger were tasked with creating one for Detective Comics, and the result was Batman. Like Superman, he was created with a mix of pulp heroes like Zorro and the Shadow, along with an image of Leonardo da Vinci's Man in the Glider. He debuted in Detective Comics number 27 on May of 1939 and was an instant success, as he would also get his own comic in Batman #1 of spring of 1940, which debuted two of his chief villains, the Joker and Catwoman. Marvel Comics #1 debuted in October-November of 1939 under Timely, the company that would eventually become Marvel itself, and featured the debut of Namor the Submariner and the original Human Torch, who was at the time an android whose skin caught fire when it came into contact with the air. Wiz Comics #2 also debuted at that time and featured the first appearance of Captain Marvel by C.C. Beck and Bill Parker, who today is known as Shazam. Of interesting note, DC would sue his publisher Fawcett over copying Superman, though it was really the other way around, as Captain Marvel was already flying while Superman was still just leaping tall buildings in a single bound. He would later get his own comic, Captain Marvel's Adventures #1, in January of 1941. Flash Comics #1 appeared on November 20th, 1939, featuring the first appearance of the fastest man alive, originally Jay Garrett. The Spirit by Will Eisner debuted as a comic strip in February of 1940 and was notable for its more mature and violent content. In March of 1940, classic pulp heroes like The Shadow and Doc Savage got their own comic book. New York World's comic debuted in 1940 and features the first time Batman, Robin, and Superman appeared on the cover together. The Spectre by Jerry Siegel and More Fun Comics #52 debuted in 1940, while Our Man appeared in Adventure Comics #8. Robin first appeared in Detective Comics #38 in April of 1940 with the intention of being the Watson to Batman's Sherlock Holmes, and also to appeal to younger readers. The Alan Scott Green Lantern debuted in All-American Comics #16 on July of 1940. The Atom debuted in American Comics #19 on October 1940. Marvel Mystery Comics #9 appeared on July of 1940, featuring the first team-up with the Submariner and the Human Torch. Other big-name publishers started having their characters debut in comics as well, such as Walt Disney Comics and Stories #1 in 1940. Superheroes started to appear in other mediums as well, such as the Superman radio show, which debuted in 1940 with Bud Collyer as Superman and featured the first appearances of Perry White and Jimmy Olsen, along with the concept of kryptonite. Other genres of comic books started to debut as well, as with War Comics #1 and Red Ryder Comics #1, the first devoted entirely to westerns. All-Star Comics #2 appeared in 1940 and featured the debut of the JSA, otherwise known as the Justice Society of America, which included the first lineup of The Flash, Green Lantern, The Spectre, Our Man, Hawkman, Dr. Fate, The Sandman, The Atom, and Johnny Thunder. What's most notable, this team is still being published today, and that lineup is more or less the same. Not a bad run for a team. In March of 1941, Captain America #1 debuted by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, with our star-spangled hero famously punching out Hitler on the cover. They would leave after a few issues due to a contract dispute, with a then 17-year-old intern named Stanley Lieber taking over, who would later be known as Stan Lee. All Winners #1 appeared in 1941, which was only featured the first team-up of Captain America, the Human Torch, and the Submariner, but also debuted the Young Allies, the sidekicks of Cap and Torch, and Bucky and Toro. In 1941, another war comic appeared called Military Comics #1, featuring the first appearance of the Blackhawks, DC's famous flying squadron. Police Comics #1 debuted in 1941, featuring the first appearance of Pet Plastic Man by Jack Cole, and would get his own series in 1943. The first Girl Comics appeared with Calling All Girls #1 in September of 1941. Classic literature also appeared in comics with Classic Comics #1 in October of 1941. In September of 1941, Superman made his cartoon debut with a classic series from Fleischer Studios. The Green Arrow and Aquaman first appeared in More Fun Comics #73 on November of 1941. Archie, the classic character and current star of the CW series Riverdale, made his first appearance in Pet Comics #22 on December of 1941 by Bob Montana. By 1941, comics were selling 50 million a month thanks to their exciting stories and being a cheap form of entertainment during World War II. Wonder Woman debuted in All-Star #8 in December of 1941. While not the first female superhero in comics, that was the Black Fury in April of 1941, she is the one who set the standard for all to follow and became an instant hit. Quality Comics introduced the Spirit in Police Comics #11 to comic books on September 42, and later got his own book, The Spirit, in 1944, along with the first appearance of his regular black character, of a regular black character in Ebony. Now, I should warn you, if you ever look up this character, he is unfortunately indicative of racist attitudes at the time, but he does hold the distinction of being the first regular black character in comic books. Star Spangled Comics #7 introduced the Newsboy Legion and the Guardian by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, another shield-bearing hero by them. By 1943, comics were estimated to sell at $30 million a year, with up to $25 million selling per month. Max Gaines left DC in 1944 and would found Educational Comics with the intention to educate readers. It would later become Entertaining Comics under his son Bill, best known today as EC Comics. Superboy made his first appearance in More Fun Comics #101 in 1945. As stated at the beginning of this episode, the end of World War II in 1945 is considered the end of the golden age of comic books. During the war, comics were a chief source of entertainment and extremely popular with soldiers, who, as today, are very young. Sales started to peter out as the war ended, though still steady. However, the success of this until now unregulated medium had drawn some unwanted attention from parents, doctors, and worst of all, the government. And now it is May 3rd, 2018, and time for a few reviews. First off, of course, favorite comic book of this week, Tab and Blink, We're Here, by Kevin Rubio, Lucas Maragon, and Rick Zombo. A collection of the classic one-shots of Tag and Blink, the two idiots who managed to weave their way throughout the entire Star Wars continuity, originally published by Dark Horse, and now under Marvel. If you ever wonder what happened to Chewie's medal, or just how many Boffins did die when stealing the second Death Star's plans, this is a classic collection of 5 issues at $8, but well worth it for any Star Wars fan. Seriously, this is some of the funniest stuff for any Star Wars or just comics in general. A true classic. Also, I've done a copy on a few of the streaming servers today, especially on the comic book side. I cannot recommend The Tick on Amazon Prime enough. Peter Seranovitz is hilarious in the title role, mixing in kind of a sweet-natured but a pompous attitude about him, and uses his stature to great work. And as Ben Engwood points out, The Tick is designed to make fun of current comic book shows. This is the show, like the Saturday morning cartoon show, and the original sitcom made fun of. It is well worth watching, as I pointed out. Serves is brilliant in the title role. Plus, Jackie Earle Haley, probably best known as playing Rorschach in the Watchmen movie, is a hoot as the big bad, the Terror, who steals the show when he's not trying to take over the world, trying to get jazz drummer lessons. If you're an Amazon subscriber, this is a must-watch. Also, I caught up on Jessica Jones Season 2. Excellent, fun series, like the first season, but that's the problem with most Netflix series. That 13-episode fixed limit really hurts the series. Quite frankly, this could have been shorter. Kristen Ritter gives another brilliant performance, and it delves into how she got her powers. And Rachel Taylor is equally excellent, her best friend, Trish Walker. And it does give huge future hints of where those characters are going, but they could have easily pared it down to 10 episodes or less. Nevertheless, if you're a Netflix subscriber, definitely worth picking up and watching. And of course, the elephant in the room, Avengers Infinity War. Whew. Still processing, but this is easily the culmination of the MCU's last 10 years of movies, and it's well worth watching. The cast is excellent as usual, with Josh Brolin as Thanos stealing the show, easily becoming the MCU's best villain, and quite frankly, a quite layered one and complex. You feel for him, even though he does believe in the Malthusian overpopulation myth, which has been long disproven. But even when the extreme lengths he goes through to accomplish his mission is just scary. The action by the Russo brothers is second to none, as usual, and this is a true epic on every level. If you are a comic movie fan, this is well worth watching, and after seeing the box office gross, I'm surprised you haven't already. And finally, just remind everyone, May 5th of 2018, of course, the first weekend in May, so you know what that means, Free Comic Book Day. Go to your local comic book store and get some free comic books, and also pick up something yourself. I'll be doing the same. And, apparently there's a horse race in Kentucky too, but who cares? Anyway, thank you for coming back for another episode of HistoryOfComicBooks.com. Next episode, we'll be going into the interim age between the Golden Age and the Silver Age. And thank you, and enjoy some comics.